Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and today we're taking a look at the new for 2013 Hyundai Elantra GT. This is essentially the 5-door hatchback version of the existing Hyundai Elantra that's been around since the 2011 model year. Your guess is as good as mine as to why Hyundai has called the Elantra GT a GT and not just simply the Elantra 5-door. If you recall, there used to be a Hyundai Elantra Touring, and this is not a replacement for that model because the Touring was a traditional wagon with a much longer back end here behind the rear seats, and the GT is really that traditional 5-door hatchback that you've seen from Mazda 3, the Ford Focus, and even something like the Volkswagen GTI. Up front, you'll find the same grille and same flowing lines that you'll see in the rest of the Hyundai products in America. I find the design language to be very flowing, very elegant, but not quite as exciting as some of the more aggressive entries in this segment, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. The Elantra's clean lines continue out back with a hidden exhaust tippets over there on the passenger side of the vehicle and a hidden backup camera. It's right here under the Hyundai logo. The motor to operate that little logo is a little bit louder than other competing products that I've seen out on the market, but I do like the fact that they've hidden that backup camera rather than putting some large wart somewhere else on the vehicle. Everything back here just continues that clean theme, including the button to release the hatch, which is nicely tucked away right there under the hatch in this little cutout from the bumper. Of course, it is a hatchback, so we get a hatch. We can't really talk about the Elantra without talking about the elephant in the room, which is the Kia Forte, because they are related. Now, Hyundai and Kia are not the same company, but the Hyundai Motor Corporation's parent company owns about 38% of Kia, and as a result, they share drivetrains, engines, transmissions, chassis designs, infotainment, seat designs, etc., a lot of floor stamping as well. So this vehicle is very closely related to the 2014 Kia Forte, 2014 being the important number there, because the Forte has just received a complete redesign for 2014, while the base of this Hyundai Elantra GT is still stuck at the 2011 model year. Under the hood, you'll find the same 1.8-liter direct injection 4-cylinder engine as the regular Elantra sedan. It produces 148 horsepower and 131 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to your choice of a manual transmission or a 6-speed automatic. If you opt for that 6-speed automatic like most shoppers will, then the EPA claims you'll get 26 miles per gallon in the city and 37 on the highway. Now that is a slight decrease over last year's 2839 numbers because of course Hyundai was accused of misrepresenting their numbers for EPA publication. Either way, we've been averaging about 28 miles per gallon in this car in mixed driving, which is a little bit lower than that new 2014 Forte. Hatchbacks are about cargo carrying capacity. That's true here with the Elantra GT. This is the largest roller bag you can carry on a domestic flight. You can fit 4 of them fairly easily in this trunk because of the ability to put them in this orientation. If you take that out, you'll be able to see that under this cargo floor, we have some additional storage space on the left and the right and in the center here. This foam divider pulls out to reveal the fact that the Elantra GT was designed to accommodate a full-size matching spare tire. We have a donut spare tire in our car, so the jacks are stored in this little foam donut there. But if you decided to, you could put a full-size spare tire in the Elantra GT. That is kind of a nice feature and something that you don't really find in many modern cars. That means it is now time to find out how comfortable the trunk in our Elantra GT is. The Elantra GT scores 8 out of 10 points in our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index because this cargo area is very nicely upholstered. It's also well featured with a 12-volt power port over here, grocery bag holders on each side. We have this tonneau cover right here to help cover your valuables when you close your trunk lid. And speaking of that lid, we have 2 large and very well positioned handles, one on either side of the Elantra GT's hatchback, helping you close that trunk lid whether you're inside or out. Front seat comfort in the Elantra GT is very good. Our model has the optional power driver seat, which does increase the range of motion for the driver. We also have a 2-way power adjustable lumbar support, which I really appreciate. The bolstering in this seat is fairly aggressive for a compact vehicle. We also have a tilt telescoping steering wheel with a decent range of motion. Getting in and out of the Elantra GT is fairly easy because with most hatchbacks we get a relatively square rear door opening. That's definitely happening here in the Hyundai Elantra GT. This front seat's adjusted for me at 6 feet tall. As you can see, I have a few inches of legroom left over here. But if I scoot over to the passenger side, you'll see it's a little bit of a different story. My knees are now touching this front seat, which was adjusted for a 6'5" passenger that we had in the vehicle earlier. That's not something that you'd find in the Ford Focus, which is a little bit longer, has a little bit more rear legroom. In my opinion, the Elantra has one of the more attractive interiors in this segment. The perforated leather seats are very nice looking and very nice to sit in. We have very attractive door styling and very attractive dashboard styling in my opinion again. Now the dashboard is soft touch upper and a hard lower, so these plastics and lower in the dashboard are hard. Same goes for those doors. We have a fairly decently sized glove box here. And the center console in the Elantra is one of the more elegant and more attractive in this segment, in my opinion. I do find this more attractive than even the current generation Forte. We have dual zone climate control in our model. One thing that I dislike, however, is the fact that the USB, iPod, and auxiliary inputs right here are not hidden away in some cubby like the center console or that glove box. Instead, they're right there for everyone to see. We have our transmission shifter for the automatic transmission. Down here in the dash, we have two large cup holders suitable for the largest takeout drinks, and we have a armrest here that reveals a smallish cubby and slides forward and backward as well. Our model has push button start as well as keyless entry. Going over to the instrument cluster here, it's a fairly typical 2-dial arrangement with this trip computer section that mimics the hourglass shape of that center console. We have a very typical Hyundai steering wheel here. I don't find this quite as attractive as that Kia steering wheel or some of the other entries in this segment. It does have nice features right here on the steering wheel, however. It is easy to use, easy to find them. Over here we have our phone controls, our voice command button, radio controls over here, cruise control buttons on this side. Over here we have our trip computer buttons, that's trip and reset, and this little button here changes your steering effort. You can choose between comfort, normal, and sport. If we move all the way over to the right hand side, you'll find the active eco button that controls transmission shifts and a few other features of the car, and then over here we have our window switches. If you don't care about infotainment, then go ahead and follow those instructions at the bottom of your screen to fast forward to the drive section of our review. Our Elantra GT tester has the optional $2,350 tech package, which includes this touchscreen navigation system, the dual zone climate control below it, rear view camera, automatic headlamps, and the proximity key with the push button start as well. Now, this touchscreen navigation system is very similar to the one that's used in other Hyundai and Kia models. It includes XM satellite radio. We have a media interface for our iPod, USB device, and of course a 1/4-inch stereo mini input. Track up and down buttons over here. Direct access button to the map. Direct access button to our destination entry screen. The route button is where you'd cancel your route, change your route, or see route overviews. Over on the setup screen, we have our usual vehicle setup as well as navigation setup. On the Blue Link screen, we have our Blue Link connected options here. We have location sharing, downloaded points of interest that you can capture on your smartphone and bring over into the car. The Eco Driving screen shows your fuel economy history in the car. Supposedly 30 miles per gallon is the community average. I'm not exactly clear where Hyundai gets that. We've been averaging between 26 and 28 miles per gallon in this vehicle. The high-resolution touchscreen offers very attractive graphics. We have 3 different AM, FM, and XM presets. Those are across the top. Down here we have mode, which switches from category, title, channel name, etc. We can list stations in this system as well. You can search. You can type in direct station numbers there. You can scan, and you can hit the sound button in most screens to be taken over to the tone settings. Over here on the media tab, if we hit menu, you'll see playlists, artists, albums, genres on your USB or your iDevice. It is fully featured. You do have access to all of your playlists, your artists, etc. on the system. The interface is very snappy, but it does not offer voice control like newer versions of this system. The system features a single slot CD player with MP3 player compatibility. If we go over to the map tab, you'll see a fairly high resolution map here on the system. It is very attractive, very easy to read. We also have XM data subscriptions available in the system for traffic that displays your real-time traffic on that same map, sports, weather, and stock quotes. These all require an additional XM subscription on top of the regular XM radio subscription. Clicking on over to the destination tab reveals your address entry, intersections, etc. Entering an address in the system is very snappy. We'll go ahead and enter one here so you can see. You can see it selects an address very rapidly. It's much faster than a number of other systems in this segment. Voice commands also work very well for your destination entry. The system also provides basic Bluetooth phone integration. You do have access to your downloaded contacts from your phone. You do have a dial pad over here for quick and easy number entry. The system worked very well with our iPhone as well as a number of other Bluetooth phones. You don't have a text messaging assistant with this system like you do in some of the newer versions of the Hyundai and Kia system, or as you would find in some of the competitors. Speaking of iPhone and other device integration, I do have an iPhone 5 on this system, and you do have to use this Kia adapter plug in order to use your iDevice on the system, which means if you have a later model iDevice, then you have to also use Apple's connector in order to connect that to the system. You cannot just use Apple's or anybody else's USB to iDevice connector in the system and have it work. It just won't play the audio. So you have to use that Kia cable. It is a $9 option, we're told. Hyundai did more than just add a hatchback to the existing Elantra sedan, and that's a good thing because the Elantra sedan doesn't really have a very stiff chassis, and it's really noticeable out on winding roads like this, especially where there's a lot of uneven pavement going on. There's just a lot of chassis flex in that Elantra sedan that's not something that you find in this Elantra GT. However, despite that extra stiffening, the Elantra still isn't as engaging out on the road as the Ford Focus or the Mazda 3. Part of the problem is the Elantra GT's engine. Even though this is a few hundred pounds lighter than most of its competition, it's not going to win any stoplight races with a 0 to 60 of about 9 seconds. That's a decent amount slower than the last Ford Focus we tested, or even the Kia Forte with its larger engine from the same engine family. That Forte is the best competition going for this Elantra GT because they're both very value priced. When you take a look at the competition, the Elantra is a decent amount cheaper than the Ford Focus or the Mazda 3, and so you can forgive a lot of the dynamic issues in the Elantra GT for that reduction in price. The problem is that Kia Forte, because the new redesigned 2014 Kia Forte doesn't seem to have many of these limitations. I wouldn't call it quite as dynamic as the Mazda 3 still, however, it is just about as dynamic as the Ford Focus. That makes it a lot better than this Elantra GT, and the pricing is roughly the same. In terms of absolute grip out on the road, the Elantra does very well, and that's thanks to those 215 width tires as much as the light curb weight of the Elantra GT, because it is about 200 pounds lighter than that Mazda 3. Steering feel is probably the wrong thing to be talking about these days because electric power steering makes all these cars just about as numb as one another. So I could say that this Elantra has just about the same steering feel as some modern BMWs, and I wouldn't be lying. Instead, we're going to talk about steering effort because it's adjustable in the Elantra, and it's adjustable from a fairly firm rate in the sport mode to something that's decidedly light and really kind of weird feeling, honestly, in comfort mode. Not really sure why comfort mode exists. Normal mode is perfectly acceptable for most buyers, and even sport mode isn't going to make your arms tired out on these winding mountain roads. It is notable that Hyundai still offers a manual transmission in the Elantra, and that would probably be my transmission of choice, not because there's anything wrong with this 6-speed automatic, but just because I prefer to row my own. Now that manual transmission in the Elantra is a little bit rubbery. It's not quite as notchy as some of the transmissions that are out there. It has kind of a disconnected feeling to its shifts, but all in all, I would still rather row my gears than not. In terms of this automatic transmission, it's a fairly decent automatic. It feels very much like the GM and Ford automatics that are used in the small cars that compete most directly with this Elantra, so there's not a whole lot of difference there. It's fairly eager to upshift as you would expect in any economy car, but it's also fairly eager to downshift, which is kind of an interesting twist. And this transmission does shift an awful lot when you're out on the road, and it kind of has to with the amount of torque and power that's coming out of this engine, but still it's a fairly willing companion, and it does help us get our average fuel economy of between 26 and 28 miles per gallon in our tests. Road noise is something that Elantras have had a problem with in the past, and that does continue on to this Elantra GT model. However, most hatchbacks are louder than their sedan siblings, so that is something to keep in mind. I would call this about middle of the pack in terms of road noise when you compare it to its most direct American and Japanese competition. If Hyundai was willing to drop one of their turbocharged engines under the hood of the Elantra, they might have one of the best priced hot hatches in the industry. You can forgive an awful lot for price, and there's not a lot to forgive in the Elantra GT, so that's an excellent combo. All it's lacking really is a little bit of power and a little bit of steering feel. If it had those two things, this would be perfect at any price. But as it is, and as it's cheaper than most of its competition, it is an incredibly good buy in this segment right now. It's great handling out on the road, great feeling. It's a little bit down on power, but it is also cheaper than those American or Japanese competitors. That's an important thing to keep in mind. Hyundai has always been known for aggressive pricing, and that's true with this Elantra GT. Starts at just under $19,000, and our fully loaded model here is $25,440. Now when you compare that to fully loaded models of the Mazda 3 or the Ford Focus hatchback, it's a decent discount. Versus that Focus hatchback, it's about $2,000 less expensive. When you compare this to something like a Ford Fiesta, it's almost worth looking at that comparison, because if you're looking at a Fiesta for $21,780, which is the fully loaded 2014 brand new Fiesta, then something like this is only going to cost you about $3,000 more, and you get a much larger vehicle with more power and more features. We can't end this video without circling back to that elephant in the room, the 2014 Kia Forte hatchback, because it's expected to be in showrooms later in 2013, just a few months after we shoot this video. Now, if our experiences with the 2014 Forte 4-door sedan hold true for the Forte 5-door hatchback, then I expect it to be more dynamic on the road than this Elantra GT. I find it personally better looking on the outside. I don't find the interior of that Forte quite as attractive as the Elantra's interior. Got to keep that one in mind. But the engines are better under the hood. We get that 2-liter direct injection 4-cylinder engine or a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine. Produces more power than this Elantra in both forms, so both of those engines are going to be faster. Same transmission, slightly better fuel economy. It also has some slightly newer features versus this 2011-based Elantra GT, and that is something to keep in mind. It's not that Kia is producing that much better of a product really, because again, they're very closely related. It just so happens that the 2014 Forte is the latest design of that. So the 2013 Forte was a little bit behind this model, and the 2014 is a little bit ahead. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2013 Hyundai Elantra GT. Go ahead and click that subscribe banner at the bottom of your screen so you can be notified of all of our latest videos. Be sure and comment on this video. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see us review next time. You can also send me messages right here on YouTube to ask questions about any vehicle that's out there on the market, and we'll research and try and find you the answer. Be sure and click over to our review of the Kia Forte. That's the 2014 redesigned Kia Forte. I'm going to go ahead and pop a button right over here and one down there in the link section below, and we'll see you next time.